My name is Mickie Kennedy. I run eReleases.com. It's a press release distribution platform, and I've been doing that for a little over 25 years. I was just looking to educate other audiences that are out there. I know that I could create my own podcast, but then, work to build an audience of, 5,000, 10,000 people. It's just easier to jump in and borrow other people's audiences of those numbers or larger, and it just frees me up, and I'm able to just bounce in and out on a lot of these different podcasts and different marketers and even some different industries, and be able to tailor my conversations to them. I think for me it's just feeling overwhelmed and trying to make the best use of my time. I had been scheduling some of my own podcasts. I think I scheduled 80 myself, and I found it to just be kind of tedious, and I wasn't going and researching each podcast. So I'd show up and it would be obvious that this podcast doesn't have a lot of listeners, or hasn't been around for a while. And so I just felt I reached a point where I wanted someone else to sort of vet people and do the scheduling, and just free me up to be able to just focus on, showing up, having a lot of great things to say on a podcast, and just be on, rather than being bogged down by all the administrative sides of things. I think just the consistency of really good podcasts. Every time I would check out a podcast before my interview, and they were just always really solid. I go into listennotes.com and check them out, and they're always like, top percentage in their space. And so I just felt very comfortable that I was getting interviewed on really great podcasts and having great experiences as a result. I think it's been really good. I feel like I'm heard when I have feedback. I feel like if something's not a good fit, we can identify it and learn from it for future scheduling. And I feel like it's a good back and forth dialogue and communication, so that we're continuing to get the best podcast and have the best experiences. So I did use another agency in the past, and I found that they were booking me with very small podcasts, not vetted as well, not vetted at all, I would say. I found in one case that it was just another customer who was also trying to get scheduled on podcast, and he also happened to have a podcast he was starting. And so I was just like, to have paid for that, it just felt like, wow, this isn't a good fit. And then some of the podcasts never aired, and you don't get a rebate for that. It's one of those things. I remembered one case where I was on the podcast and the guy was very nervous and he didn't record, and I tried to communicate through chat and he just wasn't paying attention. And at the very end, I shared my concerns with him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've got it taken care of. It never aired. It was not recorded." And I just felt like, this is like one comedy of errors after another, and I just didn't feel like this place was prioritizing me and putting me in front of the best potential podcast. And as a result, when that ended, I was just felt more and more comfortable that I was definitely with the right agency. That if a podcast just never airs, it's not going to cost me with Interview Valet. And it just makes me feel really comfortable that I'm being treated well and I'm being followed up. Your agency's paying attention, making sure that these episodes actually do air. And the other place never even looked to see if that was the case. Well, I think, some of my best results have been my SEO has improved. And we have an SEO consultant who keeps an eye on the website, and he's like, I don't know what's going on, but you are getting all of these amazing links from Apple and Spotify and YouTube. What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just doing podcast interviews. And he's like, well, wow, it's really showing up in the links. And then I think about a few months later, all of our search results just elevated themselves, and we're probably at the best in our search engine rankings than we've ever been. And that's been, part of this journey. The biggest thing and the biggest goal of doing all of this was to educate other audiences and just get exposure out there. And we hear from people, time and time again, who call and say that they've had something happen, a milestone, they won an award, and they heard me, 6 months ago, a year ago on a podcast, and they just wanted to talk to someone about how you get started. And so those are like the big success stories. And you never know who is going to be a really great fit. I mainly focus on a lot of business and marketing podcasts, but I'm open to others, and I've been delighted with some of those others that I've done. I did one for makers who are people like in the Etsy space, and I felt like not much was going to come of it, but I shared PR and press releases that other makers had done and how they utilized images, and they really did very well. And I know of at least like 20 people that came in as customers from that little podcast. You never know. And so I just find being open to educating and being able to tailor your conversations for other audiences, as long as you know that there is a fit. And at eReleases, we do press release distribution for all different industries and types. So I pretty much am able to tailor the conversation for most people, with a few exceptions. And so I've been really surprised when those little things happen. And I think that it's something that is really helping us as far as getting the education out there and just having conversations with people that PR does work. But, if you just look at the other press releases that your competitors are doing and you sort of mimic those, you're not going to have great results, because 95% of the press releases people do aren't really effective. But if you kind of focus on some of the tips and tricks that I have, and doing some more strategic types of releases, then you can have very meaningful experiences. And that's where I just love to educate and use podcasts for that. I would say the same thing I tell my customers at eReleases. If you're just looking for, one shot and everything's going to be fixed, it doesn't work that way. With press releases, you have to do a campaign of several releases. And what I found with podcast is you have to sort of stay committed for an extended period of time. 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasts, rarely move the needle. But if you stay committed to it and you move forward and you get your messaging down and you get your call to action really good, you'll start to see those benefits come in. And for me, it probably took about 6 months to get there. But now, having done it for well over a year and a half, I just feel like it's smooth, it's working, it's continuing to bring in customers, it's continuing to bring in the results that I'm looking for. And I just feel like it's a great opportunity to basically get out there and get your message heard, share with other audiences, be seen as an expert, and just sort of convey yourself as someone who's helpful and someone who they want to work with. Because when you're a guest on a podcast, it's like, you've been chosen to share your expertise for a reason. And if you have a good conversation and you provide real value to the audience, they'll see that and they'll want to do business with you. And that's one of the things that I find works really well. But it does take a little bit of time and commitment.